Advisor Decisions for Cropping interrogator used information from 5,000 trial sites spread from central Queensland through the eastern states into Tasmania, South Australia and West Australia. So they dealt with a large number of climate zones, soil types, textures, moisture holding capacities, in-season rainfall, and things like temperature at maturation, all having an effect on yield. So you would expect a large range of yield variations in that geographical range, and of course that's exactly what they got. So to make sense of all that data from 5,000 trial sites, what they did was they looked at the relative yield, and by looking at the relative yield, you could break down all the data, all the treatments and the replications came down to one data set, just the relative yield, the yield of the plots without any nutrient on versus the maximum yield where the nutrient in question was not limiting. Okay, so I looked at that as a percentage, so it's just the minimum yield without the nutrient over the maximum yield without the nutrient being limited, multiplied by 100 to give a percent. Okay, so if we move across here, we've got an example here from 14 different trial sites, sites 1 to 14, and we've got the soil test values ranging from 3, a low of 3, 20, up to 25 here. Okay, so those soil test values is not given, but you might want to think of this, say, as Colwell P in milligrams per kilogram. Then you've got your maximum yields. So this is the non-limiting, where the nutrient wasn't limiting over here, and you've got the minimum yields where these things, in some cases, gave much lower yields than the maximum yields. So relative yield is the yield without fertiliser, Y0, over the Y maximum, and in this case 2.6 over 2.6 is 100%. In the next case it's 1.4 divided by 2.4, the maximum yield in that case 58%. In the third case, third trial site, the soil test value was 11 and they got a minimum yield of 2.6 over a maximum yield of 3.2 or 81%. And in the lowest trial site, the lowest nutrient reading of the trial site of 3, they got without any fertiliser, they got 1.6 tonne per hectare divided by 4.1, the maximum yield 39%. So we've got here a very responsive site through to a nil responsive site, and you can probably see why with the variation in the soil test values there. Now if we move across here where we've completed it, you'll see the full range of the relative yields, and that 39% was the lowest, right through to 4 of them at 100%. Okay, so what we need to do now is do exactly what the interrogator does, and that is to look for a calibration curve graphing the soil test value on the x-axis against the relative yield on the y-axis.